Sometimes, the greatest tests in life don't come from what we lack, but from what we're offered. This is the story of a child's honesty, a mother's dignity, and a billionaire who discovered that true wealth isn't in money, but in character. Ethan Caldwell was one of the richest men in Chicago. By 45, he had built Caldwell Enterprises into a powerhouse. He lived in a glass penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, drove cars most people only saw in magazines, and could close million-dollar deals with a single phone call. But behind the wealth, Ethan was broken. Not long ago, he had discovered that his closest business partner, someone he trusted like family, had embezzled $3 million from the company. The betrayal hit him like a knife in the chest. He didn't care about the money. He could make that back in a week. What shattered him was the trust. Since then, Ethan had begun to believe that maybe everyone had a price. Maybe honesty was just a fairy tale people told their children, something that disappeared once the real world sank its claws into you. And so, he decided to put it to the test. One cold evening, Ethan left his office safe wide open. Inside, mountains of cash spilled out. Neat stacks of hundreds, 50s, and 20s. To most people, it was more money than they would see in a lifetime. Ethan leaned back in his leather armchair, closed his eyes halfway, and slowed his breathing. He would pretend to be asleep. All he had to do was wait and watch. If someone came in and reached for that money, it would confirm what he already suspected. That honesty was dead. That night, Angela Morris walked into the office. She was 32, a single mother, and one of the company's night cleaners. Angela's life had never been easy. She had grown up in foster care, working odd jobs just to survive. She dreamed of going to college, but life had other plans. At 22, she became pregnant with her daughter, and the child's father vanished the moment he heard the news. From then on, it was just Angela and her little girl, Lila. To keep food on the table, Angela worked double shifts, cleaning Caldwell Enterprises at night and a doctor's office in the morning. She rarely slept more than 4 hours. Yet, despite the exhaustion, she carried herself with quiet dignity. That night, as always, Lila came with her. Lila was 6 years old, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious. Her mother had given her a pair of pink gloves so she could help with the cleaning. To Angela, it was just a way to make her daughter feel included. To Lila, it was a badge of honor. Hand in hand, they entered Ethan's office. Angela went straight to dusting the bookshelves, while Lila's small feet padded across the carpet toward the enormous desk. And there it was, the safe, wide open, stacks of money shining under the soft light. Lila froze, her mouth forming a tiny O. She had never seen so much money before, not even in pictures. To a child who grew up counting quarters and dimes, this looked like treasure from a fairy tale. Ethan, pretending to sleep, watched through barely open eyes. His chest tightened. He had seen grown men crumble at the sight of money. What chance did a 6-year-old have? Lila walked closer. She reached out her little hands. Ethan's heart sank. This was it. Proof that honesty was a myth. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of pocketing the money, Lila began to straighten it. Carefully, tenderly, she separated the bills by size and stacked them neatly, her tiny fingers moving with the seriousness of an accountant. When she finished, she stepped back proudly. "Mommy," she whispered, "Mr. Caldwell's money was messy. I fixed it, just like you taught me with our coins at home." Angela turned sharply, horrified. "Lila, you mustn't touch the boss's things." "But it was messy, Mom," Lila said innocently. "He'll be happy when he wakes up and sees it tidy." Ethan felt his throat tighten. His eyes burned with tears he hadn't felt in years. This child, this little girl who had probably never held more than $20 at once, had chosen to organize a fortune instead of taking even a single bill. And more than that, she confessed it openly to her mother, with the pure transparency of a child who had nothing to hide. That was the moment something cracked open inside Ethan Caldwell. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. In the weeks that followed, Ethan quietly observed Angela and Lila. He reviewed the security footage. He asked subtle questions, and what he discovered only deepened his admiration. Angela never complained. She worked her shifts faithfully, even when her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. She taught Lila lessons in small, simple ways, like returning change that wasn't hers at the grocery store, or cleaning up after herself even when no one was watching. "We always return what isn't ours," Angela told her daughter one evening, unaware Ethan was listening through the cameras. "Even if no one sees us, because our honesty is worth more than money." Ethan leaned back in his chair, stunned. He had spent years surrounded by people with billion-dollar bank accounts and million-dollar lies. And here, standing before him, was a single mother raising her daughter to value truth above all else. Moved by her integrity, Ethan quietly ordered the payroll department to increase Angela's salary. He disguised it as a category adjustment. Angela didn't question it. She simply thanked God and kept working. But good deeds, as Ethan would soon learn, rarely go unchallenged. Enter Gregory Harlan. Gregory was the company's vice president, a man in his 50s with a sharp suit and a sharper tongue. He had inherited his position from his father, one of the firm's co-founders. Unlike Ethan, Gregory had never built anything himself. He had simply been handed power, and he wielded it with arrogance. When Gregory noticed the payroll increase, his face twisted with suspicion. "Ethan," he said in a board meeting, "why are we paying extra to a cleaning woman? These people don't know their place. Give them a little, and soon they'll want the whole vault." The words hit Ethan like poison, but he bit his tongue. He needed time. That night, Gregory confronted Angela in the hallway. His tone was dripping with contempt. "I know you're getting more than you deserve. I don't know what kind of favors you're giving, but it ends now. And get that child out of here. This isn't a daycare." Angela's face went pale. Lila shrank behind her mother, eyes wide with fear. Angela held her daughter close, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Some people are just unhappy inside." But Ethan saw everything. He watched through the cameras, fists clenched, rage boiling in his chest. It had been years since he had felt such anger. Gregory had not only insulted Angela, he had frightened an innocent child. That night, Ethan made a decision. He would no longer sit back and watch. Gregory Harlan had revealed his true nature, and Ethan Caldwell was about to show him what happened when power was used to destroy instead of protect. Ethan picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "Marcus," he said, "I need your help again. This time it's not about money. It's about justice." On the other end, Marcus Chun, a former FBI investigator, chuckled. "Tell me everything." And so, as Gregory began plotting to frame Angela, he had no idea that Ethan was already setting a trap, one that would expose every lie, every cruel word, and every hidden prejudice for the world to see. The test of innocence was over. The battle for justice was about to begin. Gregory couldn't stop thinking about Angela Morris. To him, she was a threat, not because she had power, but because she didn't know her place. "How dare a cleaning woman get special treatment?" he muttered to himself late at night. "And with her child in tow, no less. This company is for professionals, not beggars." But his anger wasn't only about Angela. Deep inside, Gregory resented Ethan too. He hated that Ethan, the son of a steelworker, had built an empire while Gregory, born with privilege, had to stand in Ethan's shadow. So Gregory hatched a plan. If he could frame Angela for theft, not only would she be humiliated and fired, but Ethan's reputation would also take a hit. After all, what would shareholders think if their billionaire boss was favoring a cleaner who turned out to be a thief? One evening, Gregory slipped into Ethan's office. He took a few $1,000s from the safe and slid it into Angela's cleaning cart, under the rags and polished bottles. Then he made an anonymous call to security. "Check the carts," he whispered. "One of your cleaners is stealing from Mr. Caldwell." It didn't take long. 2 guards stopped Angela in the lobby just as she was leaving with Lila. "Ma'am, we need to search your cart," one said firmly. Angela froze, her heart pounding. She had nothing to hide, but the sudden suspicion in their eyes made her stomach twist. And then they found it. Bundles of $100 bills tucked beneath the rags. Angela's knees buckled. No, this isn't mine. I swear, I've never." But the guards weren't listening. People in the lobby began whispering. Some pointed. Others shook their heads. Lila clung to her mother's leg, her small voice trembling. "Mommy, what's happening? Why are they taking your things?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. She had worked all her life to provide for her daughter with dignity, and now, in one cruel moment, everything was collapsing. But Angela didn't know one thing. Ethan Caldwell had seen everything. From the hidden cameras in his office, he had watched Gregory plant the money. He had watched the guards search Angela. He had watched the humiliation unfold. And something inside him snapped. As the guards prepared to escort Angela away, a voice boomed across the lobby. "Stop!" Everyone froze. Heads turned. There, descending the marble staircase, was Ethan himself. His face was hard, his eyes blazing with controlled fury. "Release her," he ordered. The guards stepped back instantly. Angela, trembling, looked up in shock. She had never spoken to her billionaire boss directly. "Mr. Caldwell, I didn't," she stammered. "I know," Ethan said gently. "I know you didn't." Then he turned to the crowd, his voice rising. "And I also know who did." The next morning, Ethan called an emergency board meeting. The room buzzed with tension as executives took their seats. Gregory sat smugly at the far end, confident his plan had worked. Ethan stood at the head of the table. He pressed a button, and the large screen lit up. "Before we begin," he said coldly, "there's something you all need to see." The footage played. First, Gregory slipping into Ethan's office. Then, Gregory placing the bundles of cash in Angela's cart. And finally, Gregory making the phone call to security. Gasps filled the room. Several board members turned to look at Gregory in disbelief. His face drained of color. "Ethan, this is taken out of context," Gregory stammered. "Out of context?" Ethan's voice thundered. "You tried to destroy the life of an innocent woman, a single mother who has done nothing but serve this company with dignity. You framed her. You humiliated her. And worst of all, you did it in front of her child." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Ethan's voice dropped, calm but sharp as a blade. "You're finished here, Gregory. Effective immediately, you are stripped of your position, your shares, and your access to this company. Security will escort you out." Gregory's mouth opened, then closed. He looked around for support, but every eye in the room had turned cold. He was alone. And with that, Gregory Harlan, the man who thought himself untouchable, was let out of Caldwell Enterprises in shame. But Ethan wasn't done. That same day, he called Angela into his office. She entered nervously, holding Lila's hand, unsure of what awaited her. To her surprise, Ethan stood, walked around the desk, and shook her hand firmly. "Angela," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you've taught me something I forgot a long time ago, that honesty still exists in this world. That character still matters." Angela's eyes welled up. "Mr. Caldwell, I don't know what to say." "Don't thank me," Ethan said softly. "Thank your daughter. She reminded me what truth looks like." He knelt to face little Lila, who blinked at him with wide eyes. "And you, young lady, you are braver than most adults I know." Lila smiled shyly, clutching her pink gloves. Then Ethan turned back to Angela. "I want to offer you something. Not just a raise, not just a promotion. I want you to join Caldwell Enterprises as part of our ethics and integrity team. You will help me ensure that this company never loses sight of what matters. And for your daughter, I will personally sponsor her education, all the way through college, if you'll allow me." Angela's hand flew to her mouth. She had dreamed of a better life for Lila, but never imagined it would come like this. "Mr. Caldwell," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, "you've changed our lives." "No," Ethan said quietly, "you changed mine." Months later, Caldwell Enterprises launched a new initiative called the Lila Program, dedicated to promoting honesty, fairness, and equal opportunity in the workplace. It became a national model, praised in news headlines and business journals across the country. And as for Angela and Lila, they no longer worried about eviction notices or empty refrigerators. They had a home, stability, and a future filled with hope. One evening, as Ethan stood by his penthouse window, looking out at the city lights, he thought back to that night. The open safe, the little girl with the pink gloves, and the moment she chose honesty over temptation. He smiled to himself. Money could build towers, buy cars, and fill bank accounts. But in the end, it was the honesty of a child that rebuilt his faith in humanity. And that, Ethan knew, was worth more than all the wealth in the world. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. Here, you'll find more stories that remind us that kindness and honesty are never in vain, even when the world says otherwise.